right, in part 3 of my Illustrator primer, I'm going to start from scratch here. I'll go to Window, Workspace, reset Essentials Classics one more time. I'll get rid of the Properties panel, expand this one, and we'll just keep these panels as they are. I'm going to close this untitled file. I'll close this one as well. No need to save it. Let's start from scratch here. And I'm going to go to File and New one more time. Okay, this again will remember the last thing that I created. So if I go to Print, again, these are your typical page sizes. And I'm going to start again with letter, simple 8.5 by 11. I want to make sure my measurements are not points, they're inches. And I'll start with another vertical sheet of paper. Okay, over here on the left, I want to click the double arrowhead to go with a 2-column toolbox. And right from the start, let's say I made a mistake. I started with 8.5 by 11, but I should have made that an 11 by 17. Okay, so I can hit Command and minus. I'll zoom out a little bit. And right down here above my hand tool is my Artboard tool. So when I click on that, it's going to activate the edges of this artboard. Some call them pages, some call them artboards, but you get the idea. Right up here, this tells me all the different sizes of artboards that I can start working on. So if I wanted 11 by 17, I make it a bigger tabloid. You can see it right up here, 11 inches wide, 17 inches high. If I wanted it to be a sideways sheet of paper, not a vertical, right next to the size is my orientation. So I can click landscape. Okay, go to my black arrow and it's ready to go. Not only can you do that, but let's say you're designing some logos and you want to show your customer 3 to 5 variations. Okay, I can click this artboard, we'll switch it back to vertical. And then with the artboard, I drag another artboard. Now I just clicked and dragged. I don't know if that's the right size, so I can switch that and make it tabloid. Let's move that into place right there. Hold my space bar for the hand tool. And I'll click and drag another one right here. Make that tabloid. And there I've got 3 little 11 by 17 artboards. Okay, so here's the thing you got to keep in mind about artboards. If I draw a couple of circles with my shift key, shift key, shift key, shift key, I'm going to select, click the fill, and we'll make that one red, select, green, select, say yellow, and select orange. Okay. If I decide I want to move this artboard a little bit further away from the rest, as soon as you click on an artboard, it will move your artwork with the artboard automatically. I don't have to select those. See, I can just click and drag and they'll move with the artboard wherever I want them to go. So keep that in mind. If you wanted to move your page, not the artwork, you got to turn off this button. See, it says move artwork with artboard. When I click that, now I can move the page, not the artwork. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you drew like this and this is on, you're going to be moving your artwork halfway off your page. So there is that little button right there. I can move this back, go to my black arrow, select the art, not the artboard, and move it. So that's what the artboard tool does. If you decide you don't want these anymore, okay, you can take your artboard tool, click and delete, click and delete. If I click, and you can make artboards of any size. So I could go like right here, and I can set the size to be 2 inches wide, 3.5 inches tall for a business card. I can click and drag and make a letterhead I can click and drag and type in the measurements of an envelope, or make another one and type in the measurements. Maybe that's 4 inches wide and 6 inches high for a postcard, and do a bunch of them instead of a logo file, then a business card file, then an envelope file, then a postcard file, you do it all in one. Okay, if you want to manage those, you have an Artboards panel right here. So if I click on my artboard, there's artboard 1, so I can double click the name and just call that 11 by 17 artwork. And artboard 2, it automatically highlights that, so I can double click and call that business card. Double click there. Let's see, artboard 3. Oh, let's go back here. Let's zoom out. There we go. And take my artboard 3. Okay, that would be my letterhead. I just don't like how it keeps zooming in on that. So command and minus. Artboard number 4. That would be my envelope. And the last one was my 4 by 6 postcard. Okay, so you get the idea. You can manage those. You can click and shift click and trash them, and you're right back where you started. So you got a lot of flexibility with dealing with artboards here. Just keep that in mind. You can change them at any time. Okay, I'm going to start with this red and this green. I'm going to slightly overlap those just to show you a couple other panels. So if I have a color and I want to mix a color, your color panel is really, really compacted when you start with it like that. So what I would recommend is you can double click the word color. That will collapse it. Double click it again to expand it to your sliders. So if I wanted this to be a little more of a bluish green, I would take a little bit of the yellow out like that, make it more of a teal. I can add a little more black to darken that, or add a little more magenta, less yellow, make it more of a purple like that. Okay, you get the idea. So you can mix your own colors. Again, you can go to your swatches panel. You can either drag and drop it onto your swatches or just click the sheet of paper. So you can call that my new blue, and you could save those colors. So the color panel kind of works simultaneously with the swatches panel. Mix colors here, save them here. The other thing that's really nice is if I wanted this red one to be green, you don't even have to select anything. You can click on a green and drag and drop it and change your colors rapidly like that. Just by dragging and dropping. You can do it from the color panel too. Right there. Okay, so that's another quick way to work with colors. In addition, I'm going to put these back where they belong. You could just drag the tab right up into that blue outlined square right there. You also have brushes, and you have 4 or 5 different kinds of brushes. We'll discuss those much later in the class, but you can mix calligraphy, which is like thick and thin. I'll show you art brushes. Bristle brushes are like watercolor effects. You can actually paint patterns. So that's your brushes panel. Symbols are pieces of artwork that you can use over and over and over again. They're actually sprayed onto the page with the symbol sprayer. It's not like spray paint. It's actually taking artwork and spraying copies of artwork onto the page like that. Much later in the semester, I believe it's chapter 10, we'll be talking about symbols and how to use them and how to make them, things of that nature. Let's see what else we got. Swatches, I've showed you that. It stores colors, it stores gradients, it stores your patterns. Your stroke panel, when I tear that out, I can click the pop-up and show it. So I've shown you what caps do. I've shown you how corners are affected, and I want to show you one other thing here with caps and corners that's really, really important. Okay, I'm going to take my pen tool, which you're going to learn in chapter 3, but I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit here, and I'm going to draw a little zigzag line. Click, 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 connect the dots like that. My black arrow will select the whole thing, and I'm going to increase the thickness of that line right there. Okay, here's what you got to keep in mind about strokes. If I take my white arrow and I click outside, and then I hover right there, there's my anchor point. Okay, so I can click that. When you have an angle that is wide, like this, you're going to get sharp corners. That's your default. It's called a miter joint. If you pull that closer, you're still going to get a sharp corner there. But if you pull them too close, like this, your corner will get cut off. Because Illustrator knows this corner would have to go way up there and come way down there. It just wouldn't look right. It wouldn't look consistent with the other two. So when you have a very shallow distance between these two, if your corner is too sharp, it'll just cut it off. Notice as I widen it out, it affects the look of the corner. Okay, so I always click the two middle ones. You're just going to get a more consistent look. I've shown you what dashed lines can do to a line like this. So if I select it, these are, let's see, these are too long. So let's go here. There we go. And if I set this to, let's say 12, there's my dashed line. That looks consistent. But you can also turn off dashed line, and you also have the ability to add arrowheads. So I'm going to delete that, and with my line segment tool, just drag a line. So I started on the left. So that's the left end right there. And I've got arrowheads, but I also have ends. So let's start with, let's go back up here to this one. I like that tapered look. That looks really big for this arrow, so I can scale that down. So it's a little more in proportion with the arrow. Now I go to the right side, we'll add an arrowhead right there. Again, that looks way too big for this arrow. So I can scale down the size of the tip of the arrow. And there we go. Okay, and those can be applied to anything. I can take my pen tool, click and drag to start a curve, click and drag to end a curve, select it with my black arrow. Now I can add one end over here, do the same thing, shrink it down, add another end over here, and also shrink that down. Okay, arrowheads can be added to anything. The other thing that the stroke allows you to do is to design width profiles. So if I dragged a little curve like this and I select it with my black arrow, I've got width profiles right up here which go along with the stroke panel, and I have them down here. So just to show you what those do, width profile 1 is awesome. It creates this very nice, elegant, tapered line. You have width profile 2, which makes this kind of thick, thin kind of line. You got this one, which kind of tapers at the end, but it's the same thickness down the middle. This is great for drawing little wisps of hair. It's just basically a long triangle. Got that one, which has more of a rounded tip to it and gets thicker on the top. Notice it doesn't dip underneath the line, it just rises above the line. So you have all these different width profiles available. So your lines don't always look very flat like AutoCAD, where they're all the same line. You can get a very artistic, organic look with your lines by using these width profiles. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's also available with your stroke panel. A lot of things you can do with the stroke panel. Okay, I'm going to hit Command 0. I'll go in with my ellipse again. This time I'll just click and drag. I'm not going to hold the Shift key, but that looks pretty darn close to a circle. I'm on the fill, so I'll fill it red. If I want a copy of this, I can take my black arrow, hold my Option key or Alt key on a PC, and now when I let go of the mouse first, Option key makes a copy. So I'll make that green. In addition to the stroke, you also have a transparency panel. So I can adjust the opacity by lowering that. So I can make objects kind of see-through. But what's also nice is you also have this appearance panel. Okay, and what's great about this appearance panel is it stacks things just like layers do. And if I only wanted the center of the circle to be see-through, not the black outline, notice what my transparency panel does. Everything. Okay? If I click on a fill, only the fill becomes transparent, not the outline. Okay, and that's a great feature. If I clicked up here, that's like selecting the outline and the fill. A lot of people don't know you can click up here because it doesn't have an eyeball. They don't think that's a clickable object. They think that's just like a title. But it's not. I can click up here. Now I adjust the transparency and everything becomes transparent. Click only on the fill and only the fill becomes transparent. So you've got so much flexibility here in Illustrator. You have the ability with your white arrow to pull this over and edit your shapes. Okay, everything is flexible in Illustrator, so keep that in mind. You also have the ability to change up your blending modes like you have in Photoshop. So I could say multiply mode or overlay mode, which doesn't work well on red, or screen mode. You get some really unusual things that are going to happen here. Okay, so I'll select it and delete it. I'm going to hit D for default colors. In addition to all these panels, I want to go through a couple more of your geometry tools. I've talked about all these guys. You also have a flare tool. I would never use this on a white sheet of paper because it will make brown eyeballs for some reason. So you click and drag, and when you let go, you click, and you can create a reflected flare. But that's what it shows up on a white sheet of paper. That's what it looks like. It's really meant to be used on a dark background. So if I went with a big black rectangle, then I switch to my flare tool, I could create a flare like that. They work on dark backgrounds. Okay, D for default colors. In addition to all of your geometry tools, right up here next to your type tool, if you press and hold, you've got these tools. You've got spirals. If I click and drag, I can create a spiral like that, and we'll just make the outline a little thicker so you can see it. I can click and drag and rotate it at any angle I want, like that. Okay, and make them look like they're kind of connecting. Command A and delete. I can click and drag, and now when I hit the down arrow key, I can subtract the amount of arcs on this spiral, or hit the up arrow key and add more. I can also, while I'm holding down my mouse, hold the command key and twist my spiral like that. Like more of a nautilus shell or a wound spring. Hit my up arrow and just keep holding it down and really crank up this spiral like that. Okay. You also have a rectangular grid tool. So as I click and drag, I will get a grid. But as I click and drag, I can hit the up arrow to add more rows, right arrow to add more columns, and design a much more complicated grid, or click and drag, hit the down arrow, hit the left arrow, and design a really simplified grid like that. Okay, a lot of possibilities with grids too. You also have a polar grid tool. So when I click and drag, okay, that's going to go right off the page. So here's the other great trick. As you are creating an object, while you hold down the mouse, you can hold your space bar and reposition your mouse so it appears on the page, so it doesn't fly off the edge of the page. Let go of just the space bar, continue to resize it, hold the space bar, and you can move it whatever you want. Okay, the main thing is once you let go of the mouse, you're done. So as I'm still holding the mouse, I can hit the up arrow to add more rings to this grid, down arrow to subtract the rings, like that, right arrow to add more straight lines, left arrow to take away those lines so I can make a target, like that. So many possibilities with all these other drawing tools. And line segments is just to draw straight lines any way you want. Okay, so many possibilities here in Adobe Illustrator. So I just wanted to show you some of those issues and some of those possibilities. Now the last thing I'm going to show you, and this is really, really, really important. If I draw anything on the screen and I click this, it's called your perspective grid. This is what you do not want to click on. Okay, when you click that, it's going to put a perspective grid. And that can really mess up your artwork. We're not drawing in three-dimensional space. What I see all the time is people click on this and then they don't know how to turn it off. Okay, so if you decide to use this, or you decide to click on it and you decide, wait, I don't want to be using that, all you have to do is go to View, Perspective Grid, and hide the grid. Now I want to show you why people accidentally click on that. So I'm going to start with D for default. We'll start with a star right here. I'll just fill it with a color. And then I'm going to go and add an ellipse. So if I wanted the center of a circle to be right here at the top, I hold Shift key for a circle and Option key, and I draw a little circle like that. Now I take my black arrow, and again, if you're going to do that, let me do that one more time. Hold Shift key for a circle and Option key, and you always let go of your mouse first, then you let go of your keyboard. That's really important. If you take your black arrow and now you only hold your Option key, you will make a copy if you let go of the mouse first. So I'm just going to hold down the Option key the whole time. Let go of my mouse, let go of my mouse, let go of my mouse. Make copies. But these are separate from the star. I want them to all blend together as one. Because see, if I click and drag, it's going to pull it apart. Undo that. So if you wanted to blend or melt shapes together, you have this tool on the left. It's called your Shape Builder tool. Okay, a lot of people come down, they accidentally click over here. And that's typically what happens. They click the wrong side. So if you ever click this, because you were trying to go to the Shape Builder, but you clicked on your perspective grid, it's no big deal. You just got to remember to go to View, because you don't want to look at it, Perspective Grid, and hide the grid. You have a Shape Builder. And what this does is it has a plus on it. So anything I hit with this line will add and add and add, 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 all into one, and now it's one big object. Okay, I can click on it and increase the stroke. Now you can see it's one big solid object. But that's what your shape builder tool is used for. Okay, just to give you a couple other hints, I'm going to hit D for default colors. I'm going to click on the white fill and hit the question mark key for no fill. And I'm going to draw a little curve again. I click and drag up because I want my curve to go up. When I let go of the mouse, I'll come over here and drag down to make the curve go down. I'll come over here, click and drag up to make the curve go up. And you'll notice that is all one same thickness. Okay, this tool right here is your width tool. And what this allows me to do is position anywhere on this line. You'll see a little white circle following my cursor, and I click and drag. And I can add thickness to where I want it to be thicker. Okay, so I could come in and let's say edit, undo. I can add a thickness right here, add a thinner point right there, and design a little leaf. Okay, so you can sculpt out your lines. Pretty cool tool to experiment with. Okay, but when you're done experimenting, I always recommend D for default colors. See a couple other tools here. If I go in with another ellipse and I color that red, I have my eraser. And here's a great little trick with the eraser. Okay, let's say I draw that circle, and now I'm going to draw a couple other green circles here, like that. But all I want to do is erase the center of the red. Okay, if you click on your eraser, and it's really, really small, like I can barely see that, on your keyboard, next to the letter P, are your bracket keys. And if I hit the right side bracket key and I hold it down, I'll make a bigger and bigger eraser. Left bracket key makes it smaller. Whatever I hit with the eraser, it will erase. Okay, and that can ruin my artwork. I only wanted to erase the red, not everything. So a great trick with the eraser is you can hold your command key for your arrow, click on an object. Now when I let go, it will not erase the greens. It will only erase the red. Great trick with the eraser. See? I didn't even mess with the greens. So we're going to be experimenting with all these tools during this semester. Just that's a quick primer, quick run through of what some of the possibilities are here with Adobe Illustrator. And I cannot wait to get into these lessons. We're going to start with chapter 3, which is your pen tool. It's one of the most difficult tools to understand, but once you do understand it, everything goes downhill from there. It's easier and easier and easier. There's only so many circles and stars you can draw in your artwork. Most of the time, 95% of the time, you're going to be drawing with your pen tool. And you're going to be exploring that and all the different ways to create perfect curves in Illustrator, starting with chapter 3. So I'll see you next time. Can't wait to get you up and running with that pen tool. Let's go.